Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first show of 2026 for Hook, Line, and Shifter. Hope everybody had a great 2025. Hopefully you were able to hit all of your goals for the year, and hopefully you've got some good challenging goals for 2026. For myself, I set new ones every single year. The number of hours that I'm going to ride, the number of miles that I'm going to ride, the number of TSS points that I'm going to ride or that I'm going to acquire. And every year I try to nail those, and they start right off from January 1st. Do the same out there. Today's show, first and foremost, we had the bad habit last weekend. Going to do a little bit of a race recap, talk about some of the events that happened, as well as go over the overall results, just the top 10 results. And man, the end of last year, I started to try and make this arrangement to get Jeremiah Bishop on the show, and we made it happen. So hopefully you'll enjoy that interview. We'll talk a little bit about the Florida Endurance Series. Round 1 kicks off this coming weekend over in Lakeland with Gone Riding. And I'll talk a little bit about my epic training. March 11th, I start to travel down to South Africa to the Apps of Cape Epic with my partner Randy. Going to give a little bit about, every week I'm going to try and do a little bit into the details of some of the things that I'm focusing in on to get myself ready for that event. And as always, I can't do any of this without my fine sponsors: Orchist Technologies, ESI Grips, U Cycling, MASH Mobile Vet, POC Helmets, Envy Wheels, Pirelli Tires, and of course, Absolute Black. ESI and U Cycling, use that discount code. We actually got a new discount code this year. HLS 2026. No longer HLS 2025, HLS 2026. Use that discount code on their websites, ucycling.com, ESI.com. That's HLS 2026. All right. So last weekend, bad habit. Fundraiser here at Markham Park. First and foremost, fundraiser, opportunity to raise funds for the park, raise money for the park, for the trails. Everything at Markham Park is volunteer based, so every dollar goes to the volunteers to buy tools, to buy dirt, to buy them lunch. I don't care whatever it is, but in your hometown, any event that you might have that's a fundraiser, by all means, contribute to it. It was a great weekend, or a great day of racing. Course conditions absolutely perfect. We wound up with a little bit of rain about halfway through the day. Maybe one and a half laps made the course a little bit slick, but it wasn't too bad. So this was a 4-hour mountain bike race. Kicks off generally every year we kick off the same way with that 4-hour race. Midsummer, or the end of the summer in August, we have another race over at Markham called Rumble in the Jungle. Much different than it is in the one that we just did. Weather in August compared to January here in South Florida, drastically different. So with this, it's a matter of how many laps can you get in the 4 hours. Clock shuts off at 4 hours, so you have to do kind of a calculation to make sure you can fit your last lap in. For me and my training guys, we had a great day. Hovered somewhere. Our first lap was a mid 23. It was an abbreviated lap for those of you that might be looking at the results on tryregistration.com. You can see that our first lap was pretty fast, but it was an abbreviated lap because you start away from the start finish. So 23-minute, even though it was a fast lap, it was an abbreviated lap. 24s, kind of fell into the 24s from there. Slowest lap was around 26, and then we picked up the pace back up from there and finished the final lap in 25 minutes. So I wound up doing nine laps. Marco, Mario, myself, Julio, all of us finished in the top 5, soloing the whole day. There was a team that got in there, Alpha Bike Shop. They wound up getting they wound up getting 4th place overall. And then in 6th place, another team category fell into that one. So all of those were all on all did the 9 laps. Back from there, the next few solos and the next few teams fell into the 8-lap category. Overall, a great day. 9 laps for the leader, wound up being 3 hours and 46 minutes to get the 9 laps in. And then in 10th place, there was a co-ed team, Broward Motorsports. Cohen Racing was in there also for a team category with maybe seventh overall. Really strong team category, actually. A father and son duo crushing it out there. But anyways, it was a great weekend of racing. I put the video up on Saturday night of the actual race course, so you can check that out for the Markham Bad Habit and see what the race course actually looked like. Great event. Anytime that there's an event in your town or your respective park, go out, man. Go out and donate, contribute, because there's those guys and girls are putting a lot of hard work into trying to keep these parks as amazing as they actually are. All right, like I said before, I was hoping, man, I couldn't wait to get this interview to come to a head. We started planning at the end of last year. Jeremiah Bishop, the one and only Jeremiah Bishop, a true legend in the sport, been around for a long time, has some epic shit going on, or has done some epic stuff, as well as some things coming up. But hope you enjoy this interview with Jeremiah Bishop. All right, it brings me great pleasure to kick off the 2026 Hook, Line, and Shifter series with none other than Jeremiah Bishop. I was going through the results and trying to seek down some his past results, and there's far too many things for me to even start to list about his accomplishments. Born March 9th, 1976 in Augusta, Maine. I'm assuming he's proud of this, that he's turning 50 this year. I guess that's good news for me now. I got to compete with him for another year until I turn 55. Turned pro in 1999 and has competed in probably well over 1,000 events, and we'll get into that with some amazing results worldwide. One is probably one of the most extreme riders that I've ever met. And we're going to get into that. Currently resides in Harrisonburg, Virginia. We're going to get into the weather that he's going through up there right now. Proud owner of a successful coaching company, JeremiahBishop.com, if you want to see what he is all about. It brings me great pleasure to introduce none other than Jeremiah Bishop to the show. JB, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Bob. That was quite an intro, and when you do what you love, you just kind of just keep going.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I said, I started looking into the results. Normally when I do the introduction to these things in the interview like yourself, I look for key events and I'm like, you won this and you won this. And I probably still would be rattling some stuff off right now about the successes in your career, being that you've done it for so long. We started talking back, decades ago. It made me laugh because I was telling somebody that I was having you on the show today, and I'm like, yeah, I used to race, or I raced with JB in the national series, and then I thought about it for a second. And I'm like, Bob, you're giving yourself way too much credit. I lined up with you. I don't know about racing with you, but definitely, we started talking last year, and I asking you to come on the show. So I'm really honored to have you
Hey,
here today.
likewise. I'm stoked
Thanks.
to be on, and you've won a whole bunch of races yourself. So, a lot of people don't realize this. My first pro team was based in South Florida.
Hmm.
So I was on Emily Jaffe's team, K2 Newsun. So I was on a shop team before that. And then I
I
scored a pretty solid performance at Seven Springs, the Northern National up there.
Yep, I remember
And
that. I was there for that one.
yeah, I mean that was my big first breakthrough. And I'd done the semi-pro category and I got an upgrade, and I had my first pro race and I knocked it out of the park. I mean, of course, if you have home turf, that helps. If it's rocky, it helps, and if it's muddy, even better.
All right.
And I remember I was like 16th. I think I was 16th and 14th in the cross country and short track. And yeah, I remember passing Dave Weens. He was having an off day, highly decorated rider, but he sees this guy in a bike shop jersey and he's like, "All right, man, nice work." Gave me a
Nice.
push, and
There
I
you go.
never forget it.
I'm gonna get more into your career. I want to get into your background. I heard an interview a couple years ago with you, and you have a very interesting background, which led you into cycling. We're gonna get into your
Yeah.
results, your first race, and stuff like that. But tell me, how did you get into cycling? Growing up in Maine, and I'm gonna say we're the same age. I got into mountain biking right around 1984, which is probably, I'm assuming it's probably the same for you because that was the point at when mountain biking made it to the East Coast. I
Yeah.
grew up in New Jersey. It started in 79 on the West Coast and then it kind of evolved across the country. But what is your background and how did you pick up this sport?
Well, I grew up in Maryland for the most part. So my mom my mom was sort of extracted from Maine, where I was born, and where my brother and sister were born. And yeah, my upbringing was a little interesting. It was very dynamic. I had, my mom was dealing with her um, guy, which is my dad, and he was going through all kinds of substance abuse and drug abuse, and he was pretty aggressive and violent. And she said, "Hey, let's get these kids out of here." I think it was probably my grandmother's doing, but she got us to Maryland, where she lived, helped us get set up there, and yeah, I grew up in Maryland, and it was just single mom and just being raised in a pretty decent neighborhood, but also was kind of like a mixture of kids with idle time, looking for something to do. Some were getting in
Hmm.
trouble, some were getting into good hobbies. I was kind of like in between the two. I was like hanging out with the kids that were really exciting and getting in trouble, and then I was also hanging out with some of the kids who were good influence. And one of them got a mountain bike and got a BMX bike and loved it. And then I hopped on this mountain bike and holy shit, like the light bulb, bing! I was like,
I have to ask, do you remember first off, what was the BMX bike you were on? Was it anything special? And then what
no, no,
was that?
it was a GT.
Okay.
I remember all my first bikes, as we all do.
Okay, what
Uh,
was your first mountain bike? I want to hear this.
my first mountain bike was a shitty. Uh, it
They,
was
by the way,
a
they
shitty.
were all shitty back then.
Well, this one was really bad. I mean, I
Okay.
got this hybrid bike basically. It was a conversion, so it was like a 10 speed, and we got this conversion where you got the flat bar, and then you got some like cyclocross tires for it basically. So my first real bike was really kind of a cyclocross bike. And he took me to the trails, and I didn't have enough brakes, the rim brakes, and
Of
I
course,
was crashing left and
cantilever
right.
brakes. Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad. So
I
imagine like
we use the term loosely, I think, about trails because in the event of when you started, when probably the same as myself. When we got into mountain biking, all we had was hiking trails because mountain
Yep.
bike trails didn't really
Mhm.
exist. And that's what we tried to put these, like you're saying, this piece of shit first mountain bike that you had
Oh,
on these hiking trails. And I attribute a lot of, I would say, attribute probably a lot of your success to learning how to ride a mountain bike like that back then.
a little bit, it was just what we did. We would just try pushing our limits a little bit every time. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was just sort of this slow progression. And I got into riding more, and I'm like, all right, I'm breaking this thing, bent the fork. And I'm like, all right, time to get a real bike. And yeah, so I saved up washing dishes at the local Italian restaurant and saved up for an M2 stump jumper. And I
Oh,
had this thing
nice.
on layaway forever. And I was going nuts because I couldn't ride. Another bike's broken. So eventually I got a friend of ours in the neighborhood. My neighbor said, hey, look, you're not going to be able to ride all summer if you don't get this thing out of bike jail. So I'll lend you $500. You just pay me back. And it was the coolest thing ever. Eric Peel. Um, yeah, it was hugely supportive and yeah, just a super all around guy. And um, yeah, I was very lucky to have a few people that saw my effort and said, hey, you need a ride to the race or, you want some spare tires. And, I've been spending my entire career giving back and paying it forward. So it's been pretty wild. So my involvement with NICA, Virginia High School Mountain Bike Association, West Virginia High School Mountain Bike Association, IMBA, all these organizations is just, um, yeah, it's just me trying to, pay it forward and introduce more people to the sport. I was very lucky to find it and change my life for sure.
That's great. What was your first mountain bike race? And I'll get into to Florida, but what was your first I don't say your first real mountain bike race, but like what was one that was
It
your
was a real mountain bike race. Yeah.
okay.
1992 Maryland Mutter.
Okay.
And very appropriately, it rained all day the day before, and it was muddy. It was nasty. Chain got caught into the cassette. I crashed several times. I still have the scars from those crashes. Like, I mean, I effed myself up pretty good.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I had a lot more effort, a lot more drive than I had ability at that point. So I was a bit of a mess, but I think I finished 11th in the beginner
Okay.
junior race. So I was like right in the mid pack. That was in the 90s when like fields were huge for our
Right.
regional races in the mid Atlantic, and they only got bigger, in the years after that. And yeah, but I got hooked. I mean, I swore I would never do it. Some kids in the neighborhood all loaded into my mom's station wagon. She brought the dogs, and we got you know, yeah, it was kind of a very memorable first race because I had my friends cheering for me. My mom was there. Many other my races, my family doesn't go to very many races, and they have over the years, but that for a first race was really kind of memorable. I remember it burned into my psyche. I was like, that was so brutal. Lungs are on fire. Like, you're all cut up and just destroyed. Like it really is physically hard if you're going full gas. And I was not ready for that, and I swore I would never do it again.
So you did finish the race?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
oh
My
yeah,
first one, I DNF'd and I wondered why in the hell am I involved in this sport? And then started driving back to Tallahassee and I'm like, you know what? I think I could probably figure this. And for me, it was 95. I'm like, I think I could
yeah, man.
probably figure this out.
Oh, it is a great sport. It's a challenging sport, and there's so much to learn. It's I would say very technical. It's probably like it's got to be probably one of the more technical sports in the world as far as like the total number of things that need to come together for a good race to happen.
Right.
Like I mean, bike setup alone. I mean, you know this, Bob. It's like hugely different between events.
Yep.
And if you've got a race like Leadville, your setup is going to be wildly different from BC Bike Race.
When you I'm gonna stray for just one second because you brought up Leadville. I want to get your take. I just read yesterday that drop bars aren't going to be allowed anymore. What's your take on that?
Oh, that's really funny you say that because yeah, I was kind of chuckling because you see all these brands are coming out with drop bar mountain bikes.
Right.
And I mean, it doesn't bother me all that much, but I can imagine like if you're like putting out a new model of bike, crossing your fingers that some people are going to buy it, you got to be absolutely bummed right now.
Right. Devastated that the
All
biggest
right, well,
one of the biggest
back to the
races in the
drawing board.
country.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you don't care one way or the other.
Horses for courses.
Right.
So, I mean, Travis Brown, he was one of my, I don't want to say heroes, but I really looked up to Travis and
Mm-hmm.
he had a wild streak when it came to innovating and really making sure he's, you know, um, having the right bike for the course. And he was testing the 6'9", 69-inch
Mm-hmm.
setup and all suspension setups. I've done product testing and prototype testing for a bunch of different brands um, over the years. And yeah, I mean, new technology is cool. I mean, and experimentation is cool because even if it doesn't stick, like this whole 32-inch wheel thing, you
Yep.
will learn something about suspension setup. You will learn something about geometry. You will learn something about gyroscopic effect on wheels, and you might come up with something else that actually is useful, or maybe it is something exciting to look at. But yeah, I mean, as far as Leadville goes, it's really a gravel race with a lot of rocks.
Yeah.
It's kind of my
How do you do? I know you've done very well at that event. I've gotten my ass handed to me every time that I go there and attempt it. How do you do at altitude? And what would be your recommendation to somebody? As an example, for me, I don't have the ability to go there. I know it's 7 to 10 days before to try to get yourself acclimated. I'm there, I think we race on Saturday. I'm flying in Friday morning, practicing, trying to race and getting the hell out of town. And it just doesn't work for me. But how do you do at altitude? And what is part of your routine to make sure you can perform? Because you clearly can.
yeah, I've had some really good races at altitude, and it took a long time to get to that point. When I first raced the national series in the late 90s, I would just get destroyed. I was mostly vegetarian at that point, and I was really watching my diet, but also I was a little iron deficient. I didn't really realize it. And then, I started to supplement with iron, which seemed to help. And then I was just like, all right, forget this. I'm going back on the, you know, everything diet, but just eat healthy, try to eat clean, and have some red meat and whatnot. And yeah, so I finally started to get some homeostasis with it. But also, I learned a lot about the training and the sports science behind not only acclimating to altitude, but adapting to altitude. So there's
Hmm.
sort of two different phases that take place. And typically, when people go up to Leadville or race pretty high, they are only acclimating. They're getting some very short term adaptation, which just gets them operational. You
Right.
get to a point where you don't get headaches and you can operate, and but you're not really prepped. You're not really ready. And so for me, it took a long time to get that. I also had a pretty high VO2 max, so I think it really lent itself to once I was acclimated properly, I was able to perform pretty well.
Hmm.
That's just my theory. But
Do you want to share what your VO2 is?
was
Okay,
it
was.
definitely changes as you get older. It changes quite significantly. 84
Okay.
at the peak, so is quite
Good for
high.
you.
Um, but yeah, this whole thing came about step by step, and I started to figure things out a little bit, and then also having a big base also helps. So
Hmm.
the more aerobic you are at altitude, the better. And so if you've got a really big engine and you get to the point where you're very highly trained, you can do a lot of work without going anaerobic.
Right.
Very good. at altitude. So I've been able to win. Uh, I've had a lot of podiums, but I've had a handful of wins above 9,000, 10,000 feet. So I won the
Wow.
Northern National at Aspen Snowmass. I was second to Ryder Hegedal at Telluride in Durango
Hmm.
at the Northern National there. It should have been a win, but you know, he was on EPO at that point.
Hmm.
Uh, I was first at Bryan Head, Utah for the American Mountain Classic stage race. That's 11,000 feet. Um,
Wow.
yeah, handful of really good races at high elevation. I won Breck Epic 5 times. Matter of fact, my little plaque from Breck Epic. I don't know if you can see that. It's blurred
Let me get a
out.
little closer.
Yeah,
Let's
maybe I'll fix the
take it
fix
off for a
the
sec.
blur. Yeah, let me see here. Um, Blur my background. Unblur the background.
There you
There we
go.
go.
Nice.
Not that bad.
Who's that young?
So,
Who's that young guy in that picture?
yeah, well, this is actually not that long ago. This is 2018, so
Okay.
uh, not too long ago.
All
And I
right.
got my Leadville 100 belt buckles, so I've got
Uh-huh.
probably six or so finishes there, and also have the fourth fastest time of anyone recorded, 6 hours at Leadville. So yeah, I mean, it took a long time to figure it out, but I definitely know what I'm doing now when it comes to preparing for altitude. And for someone that lives at 1,000 feet, it yeah, it's pretty solid. And
Uh, Man, 100%. Anybody that jeremiahbishop.com, anybody that's questioning or wants to learn or wants to get involved with you, that's where it's the best place to track you down, correct?
absolutely. Well, yeah, you could email me at coach@jeremiahbishop.com. So
Okay.
that's just the separate email that I have for coaching. I've been coaching for probably about 15 years. When I was racing full time, my job was to represent the sponsors, at the races. So my Instagram and social channels kind of just focused on, racing and the bikes that I had. And the coaching was kind of an aside, but now it's a little bit more mainstream or main event as I'm racing a little bit less. I still race a couple times a month. I love it. It's super fun. Keeps me motivated, keeps me working hard. And yeah, it's just part of my part of my DNA. I just like going fast. So
Nice.
get it.
I had mentioned earlier that I was pulling up some, you know that I'm race with Gone Riding for the last 30 something years. And I
Yeah.
was going through through some results back in the 90s, and it's back in the day when they used a typewriter to put everything out. And I was scrolling through and I'm like, Jeremiah Bishop. Man, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was at the Hard Rock. Could have been at Cal at the Hard Rock, but I saw
Yep.
your name on the list and I'm like, man, I didn't even, clearly I didn't back then you weren't the Jeremiah Bishop that you are today, and
No.
I don't think we knew each other back then. But to see your name on that list for racing down in Florida, so
Yeah.
how did you get from Maryland to Virginia to residing in Virginia now, and then also what were you doing? Was the team down in Florida, and that's where you started racing? And then what was your first step into becoming making a living or becoming a pro at mountain biking?
Well, it's a couple questions there, but yeah, so I moved down, yeah, late 90s, I think 97. I moved to Harrisonburg just to chase a dream and live in a place that had some big mountains and some good terrain and a lot of trails. And there's a really cool scene here. Team Huge Ass was here during like 24 hours of Canadian days, and there's a just solid crew of local riders, Thomas Jenkins and Chris Scott. Um, yeah, Tim Richardson, Mike Carpenter, Jamie Keener. They were all like graduates of JMU, but there was like this sort of like burgeoning scene. So it was like a little Durango. And I love the trees. I love the East Coast, and I really do love the Desert West and the Rockies, but there's nothing like Rudy East Coast trails. So I mean, that's really why I wanted to move to Harrisonburg. Probably would have done me good to go, spend a little more time in Durango just for the altitude benefit. But yeah, I mean, it was my home base. Easy
Okay.
to get to the airport. especially for traveling into Europe. I've got Dulles International Airport's about 2 hours away, so it was like pretty good for direct flights to Munich or to London or wherever. So yeah, it's been a great base. Met my wife here, bought a house, and yeah, it's kind of been a wild ride. But yeah, I guess maybe 3 years after I moved here is when I had the good breakthrough, and really started to lock in the training. I started to love the training, and that's really the key. If you love the process, you love the training, you really just enjoy making those gains and you enjoy that process, then the racing is like the icing on the cake. It's very difficult to make yourself do something that you hate to do to get
Mhm.
a small reward weeks, months away. But it's a lot easier if you just love the exploration and yeah, I mean that's kind of my MO. And I race cross country for the most part early on because that's the only thing you can make a living at. If you did long distance stuff, you were just kind of like a sideshow. It's not like now where
Right.
you've got people specializing in the long distance stuff. So it's super cool. It's really the sport's grown a lot. Some areas of it have contracted a little bit, but in general, there are more opportunities to do more types of racing than ever before, which is really fun. And then as far as getting to Florida, my first team was the K2 Nissan team that was based in Miami. And they were like, hey, let's do a training camp. We had some really good riders on board. We had Salem Mazaway, who was like one of the top riders from the Northeast, Matt Estes, um,
I
Duncan
raced Matt so
Reifel.
many times.
Yeah, very
Oh
fast,
God. Oh no.
very,
I know.
very, very
Yeah.
quick. And
Yes.
then we had Ryan Trebon, who is this kid
Yeah.
with big, big legs and just super tall, but man, he can motor. This kid was just ripping. And yeah, she was like, well, we got to deal with this guy. It'd be better to just hire him on the team than to have to race against him. Um, and I remember, yeah, they had a Cactus Cup down in Miami at Markham Park one
Hmm.
year, and the team helped me line up to win that thing, and that was super cool. So I've got a little Cactus Cup trophy. It's not like the big deal or anything, but it was really fun to have a stage race. And that was
It's
probably my first win in a stage race.
the guy the any of the fans out there that are watching this will probably get a kick out of it because you're talking about racing Markham Park back in, I'm going to put it in quotes, back in the day. That is my home park, my training park, and we just finished a 4 hour mountain bike race there on this past weekend, this past Sunday. But I'd be pleasantly surprised, and you and I have spoke about it before, when you get back down to South Florida, man. I'd love to put you back in Markham Park and you can see what it is like now compared to what it was in the 90s. I first raced it, I think, in 96. So I was based out of Tallahassee. And then
Yeah.
to be down there 32, to be here 32 years later, riding the same park, it's night and day difference. And I'd
Ah, cool.
love to see what you might remember about that place. But
I just
that's one
remember
of
how
the,
tight it was.
yeah.
Very
Well,
tricky.
that's
Yeah.
unfortunately when we're so landlocked down here, we get 8 miles of trails in a couple thousand acres, where you're getting 80 miles of trails over a couple 100,000 acres or miles and miles. That's
Yeah.
the difference. We cram as much as we can in, so a lot of twists and turns, but it definitely breeds the technical riders that we have that come out of here, come out of
Absolutely.
South
That's
Florida.
a good
How
segue. I think it really transformed my riding. It really amplifies the need to be razor sharp on your corners. You need to have just such incredible timing. You're pushing the tires to the absolute maximum, and you can't just outpower another rider. And in fact, you can get drafting in those trails a lot of the different sections of the course, especially the more fast sections. And I just remember um, how how much that sharpened me up. It was really kind of a great experience racing in Florida in general. And yeah, it just added another skill set. And you add all this stuff up, and it really makes a difference because you're ready for just about anything that's thrown at you.
Yeah, we get all the time, or I get the question a lot, is that we don't have mountains. So instantly, and one of the things that I like is when I made my pro debut, it was the announcer would say, and Bob McCarty from Cooper City, Florida, and you would hear like silence of Florida. What are you talking about? Florida doesn't have any mountains. What do you got? How is this possible? And then fortunately, guys out of Florida do pretty good. And one of the reasons is we have a hell of a lot of wind and constant power. So it isn't, I use the example a lot that you can climb a mountain for 30 minutes and descend for 8 minutes. Well, that 30-minute mountain for us is probably 50 minutes of a headwind, and when you're done with the 50 minutes, if you stop pedaling, you're going to come to a grinding halt. So even though we don't have elevation up and down to try and deal with, we have technicality of trials, and we have the I would say the benefit of, you have to lay down power just all the time. So it breeds different style riders, but there is some really good people that come out of Florida or come out of South Florida. Come very competitive here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good scene too. I think it's fun to see, like you said, 30 years later, I looked at the Gone Riding website and I was like, dang, look at all these races. They've probably had more races than they did when I first went down there.
Yeah, I had Dave, the last person I had Dave on the show at the end of the year, and we were
Yeah.
reminiscing about a lot of things, which leads me to one of the questions. One of the questions for you was, you were involved in the sport in what we'd call as the heyday back in the late mid to late 90s, where for those of you that don't know, when Jeremiah and I both started, we used to have novice, base, sport, super sport, expert, semi-pro, and pro, and then five-year categories across all of those. Where now we have 19 to 39 years old
Yeah.
expert, but back in the day we would have, shit, in some cases 40 to 50, 60 people on the starting line
That's
in those
huge.
categories. Now the categories are much more broad as far as the age, and the turnout is much less. JB, what do you think has been the uh, that evolution in the sport, that it's not, I don't feel it's the same as when it was in the 90s when you and I started.
Yeah, I mean, all sports have this cyclical nature to them. Running during like the 70s was huge. Like Prefontaine's era, like everybody was running. It was on national news. Mountain biking was new at that point. It really captured people's attention. It was on like MTV Extreme Sports.
Hmm.
It was like it was a Red Bull sport. Before it really kind of morphed into other extreme sports. Mountain biking was like the big curiosity. And I remember I was, just getting my foot in the door at that time, and right at the end of the peak. So I finally got good enough to demand a decent contract, but it was like kind of a little deflating because it was right when teams were
Right.
contracting and folding, and but yeah, I mean, I just stuck to be able to be part of it and to see it, to see that level of the sport when you had Chevy trucks,
Hmm.
Cadillac, Evian, um, I mean, all of these non-endemic sponsors like pumping
Yeah,
money into the sport.
Volkswagen, Ford.
Yep, absolutely. And I remember seeing Lance at Mount Snow. He just won the Tour de France, and he shows up, and all the cameras from New York City are there, and local Steve TV stations, and yeah, it was like, holy crap, sport is like in the mainstream limelight, so to speak. And I would say, of course, mountain bike cross country, thanks to the current crop of NICA riders,
Hmm.
which really, I don't know, I wouldn't say started with Kate Courtney, but I would say Kate Courtney was one of the first to really just stick the landing and win world championships, is just out of the junior ranks. I mean, she was very young and she just nails this world championship win. And then
Mhm.
you've got, of course, Chris Blevins and Haley Batten. And I mean, Chris winning the World Cup overall, that should be on the front of ESPN or should
Right.
be in the front of Sports Illustrated. But the American psyche does not care about mountain biking anymore. Like college football, is going to be on the newspaper and there'll be a mention in the Durango newspaper because he's local. But unfortunately, it's just not mainstream. And that's just, part of the trend of sports. And I would say it's just at a sustainable level, it's at a high participant level. And obviously, if you're a pro and you're racing the US Cup or you're racing a Lifetime Grand Prix or if you're racing the North American World Cups, I mean, you've got the best of the best to gauge yourself against. So, in a lot of ways, yeah, it's better than ever. And in some ways, it's not.
Yeah, I agree with you with the evolution of the sport. I do think it's coming back. I think Nike is making a big transition for or getting kids back into it compared to like our generation. My for me was my bicycle was my escape from everything, and I've just found a way to finesse that into a career where kids have a lot more stuff thrown at them these days that their bike isn't necessarily their outlet like I'm
Okay.
assuming your like you said earlier, like yours was, and trying to balance all that, I think is very hard. I also believe that when the sport started, a 40-minute or a 50-minute lap was what we did. I don't think, it clearly didn't work. Sponsors, TV coverage, whatever you want to call it, it's not working. Now it's finally evolved in the correct direction that for the World Cups that the laps are 10, 11, 12 minutes long and you get to see them 9 to 11 times and then
Yeah.
sponsors and it'll bring more money in. So I do think the sport will grow, but to me there's one underlying theme and I hope Nike. I'm not completely familiar with their programming. That we have a very strong Nike program here, but it's a very hard sport, and and I get it, man. You talk about how hard you've worked to try and establish a career in this, and you're the exception that you found a way to create a career at this sport, but the level of suffer that you've went through for the last 30 something years to finally establish a career
I
and
love it.
I'm I could I don't think I'm wrong when I say this is that we're not setting the world on fire financially for the amount
No,
of work that you have to put in to finally say you've made a
it's
you've
a
made a
labor of
career at
love.
this. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
you have
Yeah.
to find, and you hinted to it earlier, which I love, is you really have to love riding your bike. You really have to love the art of suffer, the art of growth. Because if you don't like it, you're not gonna succeed. Let me add one point to this, and this is I follow a lot of motivational people and a lot of motivational speeches, and one of the things that I share with my clients is you have a 100% success rate every single time you want to do something. What is your success rate when you don't want to do something? In this sport, more times than none, you don't want to do it. But those are the days that are going to make the difference that you actually have to get out there and do. So it's very, I understand the evolution of the sport. It sucks. It's hard. And the financial return for the investment isn't there. You really have to have the love for it. I'm hoping Nike has a way to turn all of this around and find a way that athletes can make a living at it. The Christopher Blevins, I mean, he's the exception to the rule where we need more of that is the norm that is the norm that these guys can make a living. And by the way, I don't know what his salary is, but I'm assuming it's not a football guy. And yet he's working, in my opinion, working 100 times harder for decades.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very difficult sport, and yes, unfortunately, it's college. Now the college athletes for football are paid
Yeah.
and paid most of the top pros in the country for mountain biking. But it is what it is. It's like it's just the amount of viewership that it draws, point blank.
Right.
And once you just get your head out of that space, you can just enjoy the fact that mountain biking is one of the most fun things you could possibly do. It is absolutely amazing. And that's why we do it, because it's just a freaking blast. It's work,
Right.
but it's also just holy shit. I mean, you're just flying like a rabbit through the forest. I mean, just jumping stuff and banking on turns. And, it's just a thrill. It's just so simple and beautiful. And that's that's the real reward, and the self-betterment, that's the real reward when it comes
Yeah.
to actual sport and the professionalism of the sport. That a lot of things would need to change for that to change much. And Lifetime Grand Prix is a effort at professionalizing the sport. They have a significant amount of prize money at this point. I think they just doubled it to, what is it, 400 or $500,000.
Hmm.
So it's a pretty solid situation where I think if you're last place, you still are getting paid from the Grand Prix riders.
And correct,
Um,
correct me if I'm wrong. You got this year you didn't chase it, but last year you got an into that series, right? Or was that 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Yeah, I did it
Okay.
a couple years ago. Yeah, I mean, these are all races I've done before. And it was the first year of the Grand Prix. And I was like, well,
Yep.
they're doing this new thing. I'm behind it. I think it's cool. I'll sign up for it and see what it's all about. And yeah, it'll be something fun to do. And, definitely no spring chicken. I was probably one of the oldest riders doing it. But yeah, it was a blast. I had some good races and some bad races. And, you know,
How did you finish overall? Do you remember?
I don't know. I really wasn't paying
Top
too much.
20?
I don't even remember. I have
Okay.
no idea. No
Yeah, I
idea. I
remember
think
I remember what
I think that's when I had the torn ACL in the spring. So I did had a pretty bad knee injury. So I think it was not great. Like I had a couple decent performances, but I was missing a pretty big component of my training. Several months of disrupted training.
right.
But whatever. I was glad to be involved with it. Training up to that point was going really well, and I was pretty stoked. But injuries are what they are. You can have the best training, but it sometimes hits. It hits when you least expect it, and you're like, well, shit, there goes all
When
that
you
work.
Yeah, man, when you've been in the sport as long as you have or as long as we have, those unfortunately they do come. Let's get
Yeah,
back a little bit. Let's get back a little bit into racing, and we'll kind of go through in a Cliff Notes version. But you went
yeah.
from K2 as your, I'm assuming K2 is your first kind of sponsor, and then what was it after that?
hmm K2 New Sun. Then I got onto the Trek Volkswagen regional team
Okay.
program, and then I had a breakout season, and I went to Cyprus to do the Vorklini International, and I did Sunshine Cup, which were two UCI races. I put a decent result in for that, and then I won the UCI race, and that was my first UCI race win. And it just hooked me up doing a stage race on top of a lot of training. And I also had in the back of my mind that I might try out for the Olympics. And I went to the first race of the national series in Texas. It was in Waco, Texas, and I lined up against star-studded field of all the top racers. We had world champion Roland Green. We had like U23 world champion Ryder Hesjedal. All the Canadian top riders were there. We had American top riders there. But yeah, no U.S. rider had won a single Northern National for 4 years straight because the world
Wow.
champion and second and fourth ranked in the world, Seamus McGrath, Chris Shepard, they were all like just extraordinarily good. Couldn't really figure it out, but
For those of you that don't know, JB keeps referring to NORBA. NORBA was the national series, National Off-Road Bicycle Association was the series back in the day. So
yeah,
NORBA is the equivalent of what the USA Cycling's national tour is right now.
yeah, it's probably bigger. It was much bigger. It was equivalent to the Lifetime Grand Prix as far as its like total money and
Yeah,
professionalism.
the
It was
Norba
very,
series back when it started.
yeah, it was big. It was
Yep.
big. Thousands of people showing up, big trucks and trailers and semis and mechanics and team managers and whatnot. Um, yeah, but back to Waco, like I had a very technical course that was very South Florida. Like it was like South Florida with short, punchy 100-foot hills. It was like um, very much power and technique.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was just an amazing race. I moved up through the field and then I decided, I was too far back. I was in like 20th place and we got to the feed zone, which was the only open section of the course. It was like a 200-meter section of road. And I came up with an idea. I was like, I'm going to just skip the feed zone. I'm going to fly up the left-hand side, sprinting full gas. And I got right into the first place. And it was a big gamble. Go the whole last 2 laps without any water, but you're in the lead versus being back in the washing machine. You know what it's like being in 20th or 30th. It's like
Right.
impossible. Everybody's braking, everybody's,
Yeah, that
and I
slinky
got up
effect.
there and it was buttery smooth. I'm just following Ryder Hedge it all, but I'm like, I can go faster than this. I think he wipes out and crashes. So pissed. He throws his helmet. He had like semi slicks on and it started raining. And then it was me and Jeff Kabush down to the last two climbs, and I went like a bat out of hell. Jeff caught me. I went hard again, and then I dropped him on the last downhill by about 3 seconds, and I held that just to the line. He started to catch me, and my tire went flat. Rear tire was going flat, so I'm like almost bouncing off the rim, but he doesn't quite get me, and I win, breaking a 4-year streak.
That's awesome.
It was phenomenal. It was really, really cool. And yeah, it was opening scene of a movie called Off Road to Athens, which chased all the top riders in their pursuit of the Olympic team in '94. And yeah, it was crazy. It was wild. I won the Pan American Games. That was
Hmm.
the year I was second at the race in Durango. So really some amazing times. I had some near misses. I did not make the Olympic team.
Weren't you? I had a
That's
note.
part of it.
Weren't you the? I don't know how it works, but I thought you were the like the alternate to Todd the year Todd went. I thought in the event
Yeah.
that something happened, you would have filled the next spot.
I would have been the next person to go, but they
Right.
don't name alternates technically speaking.
I see.
I was the next in line, but
And
that's
that
just
was
how
oh
it
08. Was that 08 or 12?
is. 2008.
I think it might have been 8.
Yeah, I think I was just not quite there, and there was the level was really high. That next time around, we had Adam Craig getting top fives in
Hmm.
the World Cups. We had Jeremy Horgan Grabowski. His level was really high. So we had a bunch of really good riders. Sam Schultz was coming on. Todd Wells was
Hmm.
back in the mix. And yeah, so we had a good, pretty solid crew at that point. And then after that, there was definitely a lull in the scene after those peak days. But now we're back, in a good place. And I think the U.S. is, yeah, ranked one of the top in the world.
Yeah, I think Chris really kicked it. I think kicked it back off, showing the on the UCI tour that Americans can compete. So hopefully
Yeah,
the trend continues. JB, what was your? I asked everybody, all the other athletes that I've had on my show before, what was your welcome to the pros moment? Like, what was the holy shit? This is real. Do you
that was
recall
it.
what it
Yeah.
was?
Oh, I mean, when I beat the guys on the pro team, I was on the regional team. I was not even on the Trek Volkswagen pro team when I won that race. So at Northern National, imagine you're on the B team and you go out and you beat Rolling Green, who's multi-time world champion, and then you beat like Travis Brown, like
Uh-huh.
uh, all the top riders. I go back to the trailer and everybody's high-fiving, hugs, future wife's there. Yeah, it was kind of like, holy shit, like this kid is good. That
Right.
was the moment when I was like, wow, how did that just happen? That was the pinch me moment. And I got an offer for the team, pretty shortly thereafter, just a few races after that.
What bikes were you guys on?
I was on, I think I raced the top fuel for that
Okay.
one. Yeah.
And when did you get with Cannondale? Because Cannondale was a big piece of your career too.
Shrek Volkswagen folded when Volkswagen pulled out. This was
Hmm.
during the recession 2008. Yeah, and it was really, really rough timing because my wife was pregnant and we were having our first kid. And they're like, "Yeah, we're sorry, we're folding the team." And they're like, "We can offer you some bikes." And I'm just like, "Holy fucking shit, are you kidding me?" I'm
Right.
national cross country champion or national marathon champion and short track. So two pro national titles and no contract.
Right.
I won Iceman, broke the course record. Like that year, I was on a tear. And yeah, I mean, it's just a very, very tough sport. It's a very tough sport. It's from a business standpoint, it's like the most stressful and unreliable way to make a living I could think of. I mean, very, very blessed to have done it and somehow pulled it off to at least a pretty decent degree. But yeah, man, I was like pacing the halls of the hospital, waiting for my wife to go into labor, and just thinking like, wow, I'm gonna be filling out some application at Home Depot or something, just figure something out. But
Right.
I was on the phone, talked to some acquaintance of mine, Matt Oran, who was putting together this new team based out of Utah, and it was Monavi Cannondale, and they
Okay.
had this big cash sponsor came in, and they were like, "Well, we need some riders, and you're going to lift the profile of the team up." And Bart Gillespie was a pro at that time, really solid top 10 national level pro. And yeah, we had Alex Grant, later on Ben Sontag, Tinker Juarez joined, um, Pua. Yeah, so we had a really, really good team. And that sort of morphed from Mona v. Cannondale into my time with Cannondale Factory Racing, which was like the global team.
Hmm.
So I was with a Cannondale, but I, got kind of sucked into the other program. And Cannondale Factory Racing was really neat opportunity. I never raced for a European team, but it was fantastic. Really cool family atmosphere. In the U.S., typically most of the teams are like, show up, we'll reimburse your entry fees. Here's a hotel. Go take care of yourself. Go
Right.
do you.
Right.
In Europe is very different with the European teams, the two German-based teams I've been on, Cannondale Factory Racing and the Topi Ergon team.
Hmm.
They would cook, like the mechanic was also really good at cooking, or soigneur, or someone would, say, all right, we need to make sure they're well fed. Their nutrition is really well kept. Um, they have everything they need, massages scheduled, like they're trying to reduce the stress level. Whereas in the US, especially with privateers, you're like marketing director, you got to do all this content, you got to take care of yourself, your phone rolling, you're going to riders meetings, you're begging people to like get your wheels in the pit or whatever. It's you're trying to fix your bike in a parking lot with like a pair of pliers. It's
Right.
very bush league, you know,
The
and
one the one year I chased the tour with you, we were in, I forget where we were in Texas, but I was pitted directly across from your guys' setup, and it was so impressive. I mean, you had that black and green, that RV that you guys were traveling
yeah,
around in, the full camp or the full pit setup. We were across from you guys in my makeshift team, and I'm like, man, that's pretty impressive what he's got going on over there. But
it
it was
was
a good setup.
Yeah, it was, it's varied. with different teams, but it was really neat to just have exposure to all these different support setups. And for me, like the first time someone grabbed my bag at the airport and was like, "I'll carry that," I'm like, "No, that's weird, you know.
Right.
Get off my bag, you know.
Right.
I
You
don't need
touching
this
my
one here
shit.
to. We don't want you to pull your back out." And I'm just like, "Okay, all right, whatever." And so it was like a little awkward for me because I like just doing my thing.
Right.
But also that was just the system. And, full circle, here I am on the back end. Nobody cares so much. And I put together a couple little sponsors here and there, and I take care of my own shit. And it's like kind of a full circle. And then also with the ultra endurance racing, you need to be able to know how to take care of your own bike.
Yeah.
So it's all good, and it's I look back on those times fondly. It's pretty neat to have those experiences, and I can't tell you how wild it is. You kind of remind me with this conversation that there was my name was plastered on the side of like a crazy RV.
Yeah.
Most impressive setup was definitely the Cannondale Factory Racing European team. They had this like RV, the bump out, and then they had big flat screen TV with video games. They had a washer dryer inside the truck.
Yeah.
They had like all the air hoses you plug into the side. They had like just a really dialed looking setup, like really beautiful setup. We arrived there and the trainers are all lined up and I remember
Yeah.
they had hopefully it's like, check it out. And I looked down and there's a carpet, just, one of these like indoor outdoor carpets that says Cannondale Factory Racing. It says Jeremiah Bishop has the US flag on it. And so we each had our own carpet for our
Right.
warm up. And the journalists would come up to us while we're riding the rollers or trainer and ask us questions and talk to us. I've got a few photos of that, and I got to, share those at some point.
I
But
think
it's
I think what's so cool about that and what I've learned in this interview with you today is that you never you never sought out the path to get there, meaning it's clearly obvious you love riding your bike, you love racing. Yes, you want to, you try and progress every year, but it sounds like the evolution of your career, you just wound up growing in all of these better places for you, but there still is one underlying theme, and like we said in the beginning, it's about love riding your bike and loving the passion for it. Where I think part of the issue, or not the issue, but the growth of the sport and the growth of the athletes is you're trying to seek out the end. As I want to be underneath that factory Cannondale tent, and I want to mat with my name on it, and then you realize that you're going to have to suffer for the next 10 years of your life to maybe get the opportunity to get there. Where if you can find that love in the sport and get there, then it's you appreciate every single thing that you've done in your career to try and get to that point. And I think that's one of the such an important piece, I think, for people to try and follow, or kids to try and follow, or fans to try and follow. That there again, there's that underlying theme, man. You gotta love riding your bike. When you were with Factory Cannondale, I was with Sobe Cannondale, or
yeah, Sophie
Bare
Cannondale.
Naked, and I think it started Bare Naked and then went to
Yep.
Sobe Cannondale. But I had an opportunity. I have a note here to myself because one of my riding techniques, and I wanted to bring it up to you, was based on, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we were in Wisconsin, and I passed by your setup, and hey JB, you want to go out for a hot lap? And you're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, oh, this is the greatest. This is the greatest time ever. I get to go and do a hot lap in Wisconsin with you. And man, you went down really hard. It was I know it exactly because when we finally stopped and got you up off the ground, I'm like, what the hell happened? You're like, dude, I don't know, man. You got your bell rung pretty good. This maybe it was a Friday afternoon when we were racing on
Yeah.
Saturday, or Saturday and Sunday. But when we started to talk about it a little bit more, you described something that you thought you did wrong, and I was like, Okay, I'm gonna make a mental note of this one. But it was a great opportunity for me because, like I said, I've lined up with you. I don't race with you. I lined up with you, but to have the opportunity to do that kind of hot lap it was actually really cool. How long did you stay with Cannondale for?
Oh, geez, probably 8 years.
Oh
So,
wow.
a couple different teams. So it was Mona v. Cannondale, then Cannondale Factory Racing. I got a couple photos. I got this. Um, I share my screen. Pulled up a couple photos. Can you see my screen?
Yep, that's on there.
Yeah. So there's a couple photos just from back in the day. Um, this is one from the first time I raced Breck Epic. So I was on, yeah, that was Cannondale Factory Racing. And
Uh-huh.
then let's see, got this other bunch of photos. Where'd they go? Yeah, so I was with Cannondale Factory Racing, Mona v. Cannondale. That's the photo up here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then it sort of morphed into they asked me if I would want to join with the US based team since I was mostly racing in the US. Um, yeah, and that was the Show Air Cannondale team. So I'm trying to think if I've got one of my Show Air kits somewhere around here. I've got some pictures with the Show Air Cannondale team.
Yeah, I think the show era was the one where I said we were in when we were in Texas. I think that because it was the green and you guys were all in green and black or black and green,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. This was the from one of my last World Cups. So I shifted from racing the World Cups to doing a more mixed calendar where I was doing a lot of the ultra endurance races and racing more North America.
Hmm.
But then I went back to racing even more international stuff when I got onto Topic Ergon team. And when I got on with that team, I was racing all over the world. So there's a photo, one of our team photos, kind of like a little serious in this photo. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was great times, such a great team. And I really loved that team. The riders on it were great. The level was very high racing with Albin Licata, Christian Heineck, Sally Bingham, and there's a photo from training camp in South Africa. So this is Jan
And you've
Kashuk
you've done the epic of once or a few times.
5 times.
Nice.
So that was my stage racing phase, and yeah, man, I yeah raced yeah a
Five times.
bunch of
Uh,
different phases. So I did Pisgah stage race, whole bunch of times, 5-time winner of the Pisgah stage race. I think it's 4 or 5 times. I kind of lost track, but I had a really good run where I was able to win most of the North American stage races that I entered. And I had 4 or 5 Pisgah stage race, Transylvania Epic, and Breck Epic. I also was the only U.S. rider to win a stage of Transalp, which I've done 5 times. I got very close to winning a stage of Cape Epic, but my partner cramped pretty bad coming into the last like quarter of the stage, just the last 5K.
what was the last time you did
About
the
that.
epic? What year? Do you remember?
Jeez, I don't remember.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
kind of lose
we
track of the years. I'm always looking forward, so
right.
not much thinking. I think it was
We
maybe 20 2018. I
okay.
think. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
actually, you know what? I think you're right. I think it was 2018. I was there in
Yeah.
2019, and I remember somebody talking about your performance there the year earlier. We
Yeah.
spoke before. I'm heading out March 11th, heading back down there again for my second attempt at it with my
Are
partner that I
you?
did it on the
No
yeah.
way.
Yeah, I can't
Very
wait. We
cool.
did it. We play in my opinion, we placed really well. We got sixth place in the 40 plus category,
Hey,
and we're
solid.
waiting for
And
him to
now you're
turn
going for
50 and yeah, waiting for him to turn 50. He turns 50 just like you this year and
yeah,
we're going back in the
rock
50
and
plus
roll.
category. So
Hey, go
I'm
and nail
looking
it. Get
forward.
that podium. Get on that podium.
Man, I'm working hard. Let me give a couple more questions for you, and I tied up
Oh,
way too much of your time today, and I
no, no
do
worries.
appreciate it. But any regrets? over the last 30 years? Anything that you wish you would have done differently?
Should have taken the drugs.
Okay. I'll be
Joking.
sure to
I'm
leave that
joking.
one in the I'll be sure to leave that
Just
one in.
just totally leave it in there. I'm just joking.
No,
No,
I got you.
definitely would have had a lot more money in my bank account. Um, no, I'm very glad. Those are things I don't regret. Yeah, not too many. I mean, I think maybe I would have liked to race on the road for a couple years. I love stage racing, and my recovery was really good. So I think if I could have gotten on a good team, I could have done the tour.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
maybe a minor regret because having seen it in person, it is like the Super Bowl.
yeah,
It's
I'm
like
sure.
it's like holy freaking cow. Like, used to going to bike races and
I
it's very much a participant
I
sport, which is wonderful.
I
But
recall a couple years ago I saw it was you it was a picture that you put out. Hell, man, this would have been 6 or 7 years ago, and it was for the Tour de California. And it was a picture of you with a road bike, and you said, "I'm on for the Tour de California." And then everybody was chiming in, "Oh, congrats, I can't wait to see you out there." And you're like, "No, I'm not ready for this," or something. You
oh, I was
responded
just
in some way.
joking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
I focused on the mountain bike. That was my preference, and I kind of put that out just jokingly.
Yeah, but everybody jumped
I
all
might
over
have,
it and was excited.
yeah, no, I might have had an opportunity to do it, but I mean, there was just so much drugs in the roadside at that point, and
Right.
I was like, mountain biking was a little bit more clean, or at least, it's not going to make you corner faster, so you have a better opportunity.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, in the era of Joe Dombrowski and Ben King, and I think just in the last 12 years or so, it's gotten a bit cleaner. There's still some doping in the
Hmm.
sport, but it's a lot less. You are an outlier if you're doping at this point,
What
versus everyone.
Right. What would one more man, I could go on for hours with this because you've done
Yeah.
you've done so much in your career. What would the extreme things that I've seen you do through or have read about you doing through, I don't know, Death Valley, and there's so many of these, but what is the one not from a racing perspective, but what has been the number one most challenging thing that you've tried to put your body through at this point later in your career? What is that one you've done?
Geez. So the film series that you're referring to is called The Impossible Route. And if
Hmm.
you check out theimpossibleroute.com, you'll see an incredible phase of my career in which I teamed up with a vegan cyclist. We got a bunch
Yep.
of sponsors, and we filmed some of these incredible expeditions. And it was during COVID, so we had a big tailwind as far as people watching these things, and we had millions of people watch these videos. So we got in with outside TV. So
Hmm.
we had outside streaming. So if you go have an outside plus membership, you can watch it on their watch page. But then we also got on cable TV, which has just boosted it up to 10 million views.
That's
So it's
awesome.
absolutely wild. We just did our last episode in the Ozarks last summer with Alex Howes, and we teamed up with a local rider, and that was called the Ozarks. But yeah, each one of those has its own challenges, and I think the neat thing is that, I've done so many things that have been extraordinarily difficult, racing especially. And in some of these stage races, wildly difficult. Some of the 100-mile races, like if it rains, hugely
Hmm.
difficult, very challenging. But there was this race that came out, and there was big press all over cycling news and velo news about the Munga. And there was this race, and this billionaire or millionaire put up $1 million for the prize purse. This was maybe 8, 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I was like, holy shit, that's life-changing amount of money. Like first place was $750,000. So I
Okay.
started to train for this thing. I'm like, oh, I'm already like the best 100-miler. in America. Like I have 5 course records, tons of wins, and I'm like, okay, all I need to do is just extend my game and really try to just, see if I can get up to this 600-mile distance. Um,
That's what the event was. It was 600 miles.
1,000 kilometers, yeah.
Okay.
So the kind of thing where yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of halfway between a Tour Divide and like an Unbound XL as far as distance
Okay.
goes. It's very, very challenging. But I started to train for this thing, and I trained for it, and I trained for it, and I put together these crazy tests. And one of which was to do the 100-mile race in New Hampshire without any aid stations. So it's a very long to do a 10-hour race without stopping and not, I mean, I had everything on me and I was loaded to the gills. Like I'm struggling on the first few climbs. I'm getting dropped. I'm like dangling on because I'm carrying so much water and food. But then it starts to get easier because it's lighter. And then I run out completely and I have like an hour and a half left. And there's someone trying to offer me a Coke on the side of the road. And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
Right. Follow
Can't
the
cheat,
rules,
can't cheat. Got to
man.
follow the rules. Got to toughen
Right.
up. And, you know, by virtue of training for this thing, I freaking unlocked an entire level that I had no idea existed. And most of it was up here.
Hmm.
I did some other really extreme challenges. Like I had Shenandoah 100. I rode to the start, which is about 28 miles away.
Hmm.
I did the race and it hurt pretty bad. I was up against one of my clients, Cameron Cogburn, and he was up to 4 minutes ahead of me. Luckily, I was able to pull down the win, finish the race, got some food. Then I did the second half of the course another time to climb up the death climb. And yeah, I mean, some of the people who are farther back in the field, like, what the hell are you doing here? And I was like, I'm here to cheer you on. So,
The I thought I heard at one point, and I was around for this one because when I heard it, I was like, oh man, that I could be in for that. I heard you proposed a double ORAM, doing
it's a really bad idea, but
doing ORAM twice.
it'd be pretty cool. I mean, that'd be
Yeah,
pretty cool. I mean, it's,
20,000 feet.
that would be amazingly hard. So I think it was prior to like this trend of doing really hard and long stuff. It's if you did that back then, and we were kind of an outlier. So I got a little bit of attention for some of these training stunts, but I mean, it was for a reason. And then I did this crazy ride from Stokesville to Douthat and back. Normally, this is like a 2 or 3 day ride, and it was my first time doing a full overnight.
Hmm.
And I remember just it was wild, man. It was like I'm just tripping because I'm so like low on calories, and you kind of just get into the Zen state, and it was really cool. It was really neat. Um,
Did you in your attempts for leading up to wanting to do this, I thought I saw somewhere that you tried one of your 24 hours trainings and then it failed the first time. Like I thought that I saw something that you were 16 or 18 hours in, and it was either the cold of the night or something got to you that you pulled out of it and then had to go back and attempt it again. It was in the training. It wasn't a
yeah,
sanctioned
maybe.
event.
Yeah, maybe you're talking about the Kraken. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean that was one of my crazy routes that I had a bunch of flats, and I was
Okay.
riding the rim, and I just had to hitchhike home. Um, no, most of those went pretty well. Um, in fact, yeah, that one I when I did the Stokesville Douthat, that 20 plus hour ride, 21-hour ride, I went for a KOM at the very end, and I got it.
Of course you did.
30-minute
Uh,
KOM, unfreaking believable. I just it didn't make any sense. But you can do extraordinary things when you put your mind to it, and
it's
the
I love
impossible
the
route.
I love this concept that you're bringing up because I truly believe and forget about my percents of the splits that I'm referring to, but whatever they say, 80-20, 80% legs,
Yeah.
20% your brain. I think, believe it or not, man, I think it's so much more than that, because when your brain gives up, your body follows.
Yeah.
But when you can challenge yourself emotionally, you're so surprised about what you can actually do. And I think the mindset, and you clearly have it, the mindset is such a significant piece to be successful, I believe.
Yeah, it's been so that was really the segue to the impossible route. To be honest, like, a lot of things were quite serendipitous in my career and they just revealed themselves. And the race got canceled, so I never did the manga. It you know, I probably should have gone just to do it, but I was pretty bummed out that, they're gonna you get double the entry fee back kind of for the new prize. And I was like, yeah,
Uh,
I'm gonna just focus on something else. I'm gonna do Baja Epic or something. But I did put together the documentary series, The Impossible Route. So check those out. Each one of them has a moral or a nugget of good wisdom in it. I
and where
remember
where can you find that, on all the streaming services, or where is it?
theimpossibleroute.com. You'll see a
Okay.
link from that. You can also just go to YouTube and search The Impossible Route and boom, pops right up. We've got a separate channel that I'm propagating with the episodes, or sort of pulling them to one central location. But they're 10 episodes. Actually, I think this makes 11 episodes, and they're a wild ride. I mean, they're super fun, and we test the limits. And, it was really like a thing where I wanted to share with Tyler, the vegan cyclist, like,
Hmm.
hey, you can do way more than you think. And he'd become an incredible athlete, really upped his game throughout that series. And yeah, it's just, super fun to test yourself. And if you can bring a buddy along to do it, it's even more fun. And so that's like, you know, at the end of the day, it was just about having fun and just going and checking out
That's the
crazy new
that's
places.
that's
The
clearly
hardest
the
one, the hardest one was probably Death Valley, just because it was 7 days. Back to your original question that started this thread. That was brutal.
Yeah. When I followed along a bit, and I saw that shit you were doing, I'm like, yeah, this is. I thought I'm pretty tough and pretty extreme when it comes to the things that I'll throw, challenges I'll throw at myself, and then I saw that one, and I'm like, man, I am absolutely
You gotta go
absolutely
try it.
nothing. Yeah,
Well, the
I
neat
don't.
thing, the neat thing, Bob, is that if you break it up, all those routes are extraordinary adventures. In fact, we're going to do this is a nice plug. We're going to do Trans Appalachia as a guided tour again. So we do shorter days. We do really nice accommodations. We've got great food. Had a chef come out and meet us on day 4. Campfire, time for a beer. You just ride 6 to 8 hours a day. So it is challenging. That's going to take place in mid-April. And
Okay.
then we've got Impossible Route Ozarks. So based off of this episode, we're going to do the same thing. And it is a tour, it's an advanced level tour. It's not an expedition, where you need to be like bringing oxygen and
All right.
being absolutely ready for war. It's more of a fun, tough challenge. And so we're going to do some tours on the impossible routes. I am looking into the permits for doing one that's a little bit more expedition based, and that's recreating the impossible routes Glacier to Teton. So that's going to be over the course of 7 days, and that will be like some pretty good challenging days, like a couple days in the 90 to 100 miles on the gravel bike. So those would be
Mm-hmm.
very tough. And for that, we'll need to have some like proper qualifications. But most people that will apply for each of those two, Trans Appalachia and Ozarks, will get in. And it's, mostly the kind of realm for people who are experienced riders, people that have done a lot of racing, but they're just looking for something a little less dangerous. They're looking for something that's a little more adventure based, or if they're just they've got that bucket list they want to fill, and they want to knock off an impossible route. So
Uh,
yeah, stay
it,
tuned and
go,
check out the
go ahead.
Instagram. Check
Okay.
out the Instagram, the Impossible Route, and anyone interested, DM me over on that side, and we'll get you lined up.
Awesome, man. The path of your career has been absolutely phenomenal. Anybody watching this or listening to this should, follow exactly what JB has done, and you too could probably have a pretty successful career. Let me hit you with a couple quick closing questions. They're going to be rapid fire ones, and
Yeah.
we'll see where this goes. But what bike brand are you currently on?
Sage.
Sage. Okay. Tire, and you mostly everything I see with you is mostly gravel these days, but gear your answer towards mountain biking since
Yep.
that's where my fans come from.
Totally.
Tire pressure from in the front, tire pressure in the rear. You generally run. I know we fluctuate it, but what's your go-to number?
Yeah. Around 18 to 20 with the Aspens. If I'm running a
Okay.
bigger tire, I'll run a little bit lower, but yeah.
Okay. Crank arm length. This is a new one that's starting to come up.
170.
170, and you're how tall?
Just under 5'11.
Okay. How many hours a week? And again, I know this fluctuates too, but how many hours a week would you say you are in the saddle? I don't necessarily want to refer to training, but in the saddle
Yeah.
pedaling your bike.
8 to 30 hours a week. It's
Okay.
all over the place, man. When we do these
That's a good
crazy,
fluctuation.
when we do these big rides in the summer, yeah, there'll be like a 35-hour week. And
Okay.
then this time of year, it's honestly like 12 hours a week. It's
Okay.
not anything impressive. It's
All
uh
right.
it's retired pro level.
Retired pro level numbers.
Yeah,
You're on Training Peaks with everything. You use Training Peaks with your coaching company?
absolutely.
Okay, what type of, give me kind of a range of TSS. I'm a big TSS guy. It's
Mhm.
for me, it really works. There's a lot of detail behind it. We're not going to go into that. But what would you consider a low week for you aside from, a 350 rest week? And what would you consider a
Yeah.
good week, not your 35-hour weeks?
Oh, 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah. I
I was
mean,
I was expecting you to say some. Me personally, I hover somewhere around 1,000. I'm 850 is kind of an easy week, and then 1,200,
yeah,
1,250 is a bigger week. Trying to
that's
get ready
hard.
for Africa right now. I'm pushing those numbers.
Nice.
How many miles on an average week?
All over the place. If I'm carrying my bike through ravines
All
and,
right.
going and hitting really slow single track, it'd be 350 miles. And
Okay.
sometimes it's 600 miles if I'm all on the road and just doing flat rides and base building. So, yeah, it's
Okay.
really varies a lot. And Zwift miles are cheating. Like they need to fix the physics on Zwift so that it's a little bit harder or a little bit slower, rather.
So speaking of Zwift, I neglected to get into the conversation with you, but I said earlier that to the fans that JB is based out of Virginia, and before we had a little bit of a pre-interview conversation together, and I said it was 48 degrees here this morning when I was out on our levee system at 5 o'clock, and I put on every single thing that I owned. All right, there you go, 30 degrees in Virginia. What do
That's the
you?
high. That's the high.
So you woke up this morning, it was probably what, 19 or 20?
Yeah. It was,
Nice.
yeah. It was about 26 when I went for a run. Ran for a half an hour.
Do
And
you
then
get,
next
do you,
Sunday, Monday, 9 degrees, 19. We've got
oh,
about
God.
10. Yeah, look at this freaking snow forecast we've got for next week. It looks like they're calling somewhere between 10 and 12 inches of snow.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
19, low of 9.
you can have all that.
No excuses.
Yeah, I sometimes, unfortunately for us, we're that it's so relatively nice down here. Yeah, it's 95 degrees in the summer and it's beautiful all winter long, but I'm forced into a 12-month season where kind of by default you're not necessarily forced into a 12-month season because you probably maybe 3 months of your winter are really bad. Do you have uh, like a certain temperature where you're like, once you see this, it's absolutely off limits that you're going outside, or are you willing to put layers
Yeah.
on and go out and ride?
Oh, I say it's 40 degrees. Like, below
Okay.
40. things start to get very uncomfortable. Like you can have the neck buff and you can have shoe covers on, but you start to feel the cold coming through and like you get the cold spots on your face and whatnot.
All
But
right.
then, par for the course, I remembered the West Yellowstone episode of the Impossible Routes. So if you're thinking it's too cold to ride outside, watch the West Yellowstone because we got this Arctic air coming through. This is your job next time you're on the trainer. Watch the West Yellowstone episode. The average temperature for the first day, which was 16 hours, was about 4 degrees. So somewhere between zero, we were between zero and think the top was maybe 8 degrees. We started about 5 a.m. You know, you're on a packed base of 6 feet of snow. I mean, snow drifts all over the place. We're on fat bikes, of course. And we're in West Yellowstone, where they have the largest groomed ski or snowmobile, uh, yeah, tracks, in the country. Unbelievable.
I
And
I thought the this Death Valley was I think what it was 119 or something when you were in there, or 100 and 120 at one point was something that you recorded
uh,
in the
Cape Epic was
110.
really hot. No, we were in the spring, so we were smart enough to do that in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then to hear this story about 0 degrees or 4 degrees, I absolutely when listen, 48 degrees this morning, and I was absolutely hating life. So I thought I had a cutoff of 50, and then I get persuaded by my training partners that I'm a big wuss. I need to show up, and then I have to do it. Where yesterday morning it was 42, and I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die yesterday morning. But you're
It's not
definitely hard.
bad. You got to just have the right mindset and the gear. That's really the thing. And the thing about fat biking is your speed is about the same as running. So you're going so slow that you can generate a lot of heat. And it's usually a case of just being underdressed and not having the gear or knowledge. And so when we went for this episode, we went out to West Yellowstone, and we got training. So we met with uh, like the fat bike guru, Jay Peterberry, and he shared with us, all of his secrets. So here's a few behind the scenes photos from our.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, we started in the dark. We had the crew, they were on like these snowmobiles,
Uh-huh.
and they had the camera crew who were froze their asses off. Gosh, if you're not generating heat, it's like a completely different ball game. Here, I'm overheating. It's four
Wow.
degrees, somewhere between 4 to 6 degrees, and you see me, I'm taking my stuff off because I'm so hot and I don't want to get sweaty. So
Uh-huh.
I had to take a layer off. Steam's coming off my legs, and kind of just gives you an idea that if you dress properly,
Uh-huh.
you just have to manage your layers. And there I am, just riding off into the dark. Totally
Uh,
crazy, dude. Crazy. I was terrified. I was terrified of this episode, but it was the most beautiful and amazing experience. One of the most amazing experiences of my life, just to be up in this wilderness with wolves and grizzly bears and, um, you know, snow, snow.
You're you're definitely much more extreme than me, but I will throw it out there, man. Keep me on a list for you, maybe on that long list of if you want somebody that's willing to tough something out with you, I'd
Oh
probably be
yeah,
willing to do just about anything that you wanna do. JB, I got one more
yeah,
one
man.
more question for you, and then I'm gonna
Absolutely.
I'm gonna let you I'm gonna let you go. What one piece of advice, and we covered a lot of pieces of advice today, but what one piece of advice might you give to an up and coming athlete uh, to want to be better, to want to grow, to want to get to the next level? What would be something that you think would be encouraging for them to hear out of your mouth?
I would say that you don't have to conquer the world. Like you just have to be better than yesterday. That's really like the gist of it. And when you create a simple plan and you execute on it, you get this really good dopamine hit, you're like, yeah, I did it, and whether it's going to the gym twice a week or doing your 60-mile ride on Saturday, if you execute on most of what you say you'll do, you build confidence. And confidence fuels the motivation, which then helps you execute, which builds more confidence. So be very progressive with building and just get a little bit better each time.
That's a great piece of advice. JB, I had an absolute amazing time with you today. And again, thank you so much for taking your valuable time to share with my fans and your fans a little bit about your insight into cycling, your background. Thank you again coming on to my little janky show here, Line and Shifter. I really deep down, I appreciate you doing this for me today.
Hey, you bet.
Thanks, man. And I look forward to, I mentioned to you at the end of last year to possibly consider coming down to one of our amazing events. You and I were supposed to team up, I think, a decade ago for the 12 Hours of Santos as a team. You got snowed in and couldn't make it down, but hopefully maybe you'll consider that. Consider that one year. It's the first or second week of February every year.
Yeah.
And again, if there's if there's anything that crosses your mind about wondering if somebody could tag along or deal with the stuff that you do, I might be open to something like that. I'm generally
let's just go on a big adventure. Western North Carolina. I'm going to be doing a training camp for Pisgah Stage Race, middle of March. You'll be probably out at Cape Epic by that point because it's first.
We're there from the 11th to the 25th.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. You'll be really fit after Cape Epic, and then we'll go do Trans-Appalachia. Come on up and you'll have a blast.
It sounds good. Once again, how does anybody choose to follow you or get in touch with you? Let us know again.
So my email is coach@jeremiahbishop.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram, Jeremiah Bishop Rides. And you can also go to the website, jeremiahbishop.com.
Awesome, man. Again, thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to seeing you when you get down here to South Florida or over on I know you got relatives over on the West Coast. I'll hop over to Alafaya and go and spend some time with you. So, JB, again, thank you so much for your time, buddy, and be well.
Yeah, good luck at Cape Epic.
Thanks, pal. I'll try my best. See ya.
What a great interview right there with Jeremiah Bishop. I learned so much about him, even though I've been around racing with him for a long time. We had such a good conversation. I look forward to getting him back on the show again to learn a little bit more, learn about some of the events that he has going on. So don't forget to check out all of his socials. Check out his website, jeremiahbishop.com. You can learn a lot more about everything that he's going on, as well as he's a really good coach out there. But again, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jeremiah Bishop. This weekend, coming up, we've got the Florida FLE, the Florida Endurance Series. It kicks off every year somewhere around this weekend, last weekend, over in Lakeland. The guys and girls are going to have a short track race on Saturday, and then the endurance race on Sunday. Race is usually somewhere around 30 to 60 miles for the sprint, and then the marathon. The marathon is the 60-mile class, and then there's a full category of what you feel like you have the abilities to do. Log on to goneriding.com, and you can see exactly all of the details about the event. But it kicks off the 2026 FLE series, and for the elite category, trying to chase down that number one plate. I unfortunately am not going to be able to chase the entire series due to the fact that I'm going to be in Africa for two rounds and then a 10-point bonus round. So I'm going to have the opportunity to lose out on 70 points. You can't chase the overall when you're trying to make up 70 points. So hopefully the guys and girls that are out there trying to beat each other up can take advantage of the fact that I'm not going to be there and pick themselves up a fancy red number one plate. Said in the beginning, I was going to talk a little bit about what I have going on. So talk about the APSA Cape Epic. March 11th, partner and I, Randy, we're actually going to fly out. We fly out from Miami, head up to Atlanta over to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam down to Cape Town. Spend 2 days trying to get ready for the event, and then we start racing on Sunday, March 15th with a prologue. Prologue is only about 12 miles, 2,000 feet of climbing. We should be able to complete it somewhere around an hour, maybe just under an hour. From that, we head into all of the stages, 7 additional stages after that. So 8 days of racing. Overall, the actual event's 465 miles with 53,000 feet of climbing. 53,000 feet of climbing. Tell you what, I am so excited for this event, and I am working harder than I probably ever have. First and foremost, I don't want to let my teammate down. How the Cape Epic actually works is it's a 2-person team, and you have to finish every single stage with your teammate within a respective time. Definition of a respective time, I believe, is 1 minute. You have to finish within 1 minute together. So ultimately what that means is you're spending the entire time with your teammate. Did it in 2019 with Randy. We wound up getting 6th overall. He's still in shape. I'm still in shape. Looking forward to going back and seeing what we can do. As we get closer to the event, I'll give more details how you can track exactly what we're doing every day. And at the end of every stage, I'm going to do some Facebook Live stuff, answer some questions, kind of give you the ins and outs of how I'm feeling every day that we are there. So, all right. Again, I hope you liked the interview with Jeremiah Bishop. Good luck to all of you that are heading over to Lakeland for the first round of FLE. And congrats to everybody that braved a 4-hour race at Markham last weekend. Once again, I can't do this without any of my sponsors: Orcus Technologies, ESI Grips, U Cycling, MASH Mobile Vet, Puck Helmets, NV Wheels, Pirelli Tires, and Absolute Black. Again, thanks for watching another episode, or the first episode for 2026. Missed a couple during the winter break, or took off a little bit for the winter break, and looking forward to plugging away with one of these every single Tuesday throughout the entire year. Again, I was your host, Bob McCarty. Thanks for watching another episode of Hook, Line, and Shifter. Have another great training week. See y'all next weekend.